And
there we go.
welcome everybody. Welcome. Today we have an amazing fireside chat with my good friend Stan, the founder and owner of Dad Bodied Gaming. How are you doing today, Stan?
Feeling a lot of pressure at that intro, buddy. I'm gonna be honest, feeling a lot of pressure.
You should. The pressure is here, and
I don't know if I measure up to the high quality content. Like that's a steep bar.
Yeah. Well,
I mean, they let me
Word
on
the
the
street
show, so
is-
you're fine.
Like word on the street is that Geeklife ain't nothing to. Am I allowed to curse?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes. We're
Geeklife
curse-fed.
ain't nothing to fuck with, baby.
Well, today we're fucking with you because
shit.
we've got a lot of cool things to talk about today.
Awesome.
Stan, he's been playing Magic the Gathering since 1993 at the ripe old age of 12 years old. But in the summer of 2021, he made the big leap to make this dream a full-time reality and created Dad Bodied Gaming, where he sells and trades Magic the Gathering cards and also sponsors players for major tournaments. He, of course, is happily married to his best friend and partner in crime, Tammy. They have 4 kids together, all massive nerds for Magic the Gathering, video games, and D&D. And Stan got the name Dad Bodied from his kids, giving him the username in his Smash Brothers Ultimate account. Now, while Stan plays mostly at local LGSs on a regular basis at his home base in Alpha Strike, San Marcos, Texas, he is here with us today to talk about everything Dad Bodied Gaming, what it's about, what you guys stand for, and all of the Magic the Gathering goodness. So, yeah, super excited to have you here on the show today, bud.
I appreciate it. And yeah, the term bodied for the viewers at home, because I know Geeklife is not necessarily hip to the fighting game scene. Said no one who's familiar
Not
with
at all.
anything.
Right.
No, not just the teens. Yeah, you guys don't do Pokemon either, right?
No, not at all.
Well,
So for those who don't know, bodied is basically a term, especially in Smash, where you get 0 stocked.
Yeah.
In other words, you don't even take 1 stock off your opponent. Thus the name Dad Bodied.
Right.
It's a pretty sly way to kind of dig at the fact that my kids just whoop my ass to Smash for quite a while.
Or I was thinking of it as you're doing the bodying. Like you're playing along with the dad bod phase, but also it's like you're about to get dad bodied, you know? Like that's what I was thinking.
see, that's the direction I went with it. You could have just blindly led us astray. I would have thought you're the greatest.
Oh
Smash
yeah,
player
no, I'm
ever.
amazing at Smash.
Yeah.
And I wasn't 12 years old in 1993. Fun fact, I wasn't born.
In 1993?
No, sir. I'm a spry young man of 21 years of age. So
Ah,
my
yeah.
birthday is approximately somewhere around November
Of
of
course.
2001.
Of course.
No one buying
The
that?
fact that was in
No.
the new millennium just blew my mind for a second there, but
No.
it still does every single time.
No, I have a sneaking suspicion you were alive for 9/11.
Mhm.
Just, I don't know what's telling me that, but I have a
That's my amateur private place.
that's the one like mark in the timeline that you go to like you look like someone who was around for 9/11.
Do you have
I mean-
depression and insomnia? How's your anxiety levels? There you go.
It's like, do you remember the Zoloft commercial with the little bouncing white blob?
We all yes, yeah.
Oh,
There was
man, I'm
somebody
so old.
that-
I remember the original film, The Blob. All right, I'm just saying.
Someone said I looked young the other day, and I told them, I was like, do you want me to quote every line from the Quiznos sub-songs with the really weird rats in it? And they were like, oh, okay, you're fine.
Oh,
It's
that's
still
the
there.
real marker.
It's up
yeah.
there, rent free.
There you go. There you go.
Okay, cool. Yeah, awesome. So I guess like first things first, how did it start? What about Magic the Gathering like stuck out to little less than 1-year-old Stan?
Oh man, we could get so foul, but we'll just go with the glint in my father's eye, Stan.
Ah.
Yeah, so I was a really nerdy kid. My dad was in the U.S. Army for like 25 years. So Magic the Gathering, I loved D&D, that good stuff. I actually picked up D&D when I was like 8 or 9. So definitely an easy jump from one genre of fantasy to the other. What I really loved about Magic the Gathering was that it was a very shorthand, easy way to connect with other people my age and make friends, which was definitely helpful.
Yeah.
And yeah, I was a bit of a math prodigy when I was a kid, still am. So for me, the deck building aspect, the randomization, running the numbers, as it were, was really like kind of my way of stemming, because I have severe ADHD. Even now that it's well managed, it's still pretty intense. So getting just literally notebooks upon notebooks, sitting bored in class, just sketching out different deck ideas. Was very like kind of self-soothing and relaxing for me. But we were also broke as shit when I was a kid, so it's like, oh, you've been playing for so long, you must have. I'm like, man, I don't know shit. Like,
it's like I have one deck and I still got the one.
But yeah, I played like this mono green land destruction deck called Legion Land Loss that I literally, back in the very, very early stages of the internet, there was a website called The Dojo, and it did all kinds of Magic content creation, coverage. I forget the guy's last name, but the founder of it, this dude named Mike, is literally in the Hall of Fame of Magic just as a content creator. Like, he did more like with his GeoCities like website.
Oh man.
Yeah, he basically, him and his team and all the contributors, especially a lot of folks at Common Grounds New York. But he would literally just put up all these various lists, and he was a very good player in his own right back in the day. And they had like kind of rudimentary message boards, and you could like talk to one another. I remember just like working on this deck, and I kind of arrived at it on my own. Like, I didn't realize that it was a thing.
Yeah.
But I was running like fucking river bows and shit.
Oh my god. Oh man.
Right? And I used river bows.
Still finds its way back into standard sets. It really does. It does.
It still turns out a 2/1 for 1 colorless, 1 green, 2 power, 1 toughness, island walk, which means if your opponent controls an island, which is the basic land type that makes blue,
fucking snakes,
they can't block it. And it has, for 1 green, you can regenerate it. So if it would die to normal means, like either combat or damage, instead you just tap it and it's still sitting
undead.
Around. Yeah, literally, yeah. Like, and
I undyed it.
Amen. Yeah. Amen.
I'm solidly there. Urza Saga is one of the best blocks still in my opinion anyway.
1000%.
So as we're like starting to talk about like card rules and stuff for people who are watching, who are probably definitely not as obsessed as we are. So like for anyone who hasn't played Magic the Gathering with TCG or otherwise, like what is the Magic the Gathering? Explain like I'm 5. What is it?
Right, so Magic the Gathering is a deck building card game of collectible and tradable cards. So most decks have about 60 cards in them. The minimum to play is 40, but that's only if you're doing what's called a sealed or draft environment. Magic kind of self-divides into resources and effects. So resources are generally going to be lands, and Magic has 5 types of basic lands: green, red, black, blue, and white. Oh, that's actually my ranking of my favorite colors too. Go figure. And
noted. I'll go back and rewatch that.
No, you're good. You're good. And so you need about 40 to 60% of your deck should just be resources. So that should be things like lands or small effects that either allow you to go find other lands to put into play or draw you a card. So kind of interesting about Magic is too, every time you draw a card, for every 2 cards you drew, that's mathematically breaks out to be 1 additional land in your deck. So for those who get curious, or maybe they used to play, or they're like, man, this list looks terrible, it doesn't come anywhere near mathematically correct, that's kind of the breakdown. When you have a 1 mana or less effect that draws you a card, every 2 of those is effectively another resource mathematically. So you have resources, so those are lands generally, or things that help you find lands. And then you have effects. Effects have 2 types. 1, there's permanents, and 2, there's non-permanents. Permanents are things like creatures, which can interact to attack your opponent and disrupt their resources. And then non-creature effects are things like enchantments and artifacts. Enchantments, they kind of either they adjust the game state to be more favorable to you or to deny your opponent resources. And then artifacts are more direct there. So enchantments are kind of static. They do what they do and they just kind of chill doing their thing.
Like a sort of global effect kind of a thing. Like
exactly. And then once you play it, it usually just sticks around on whatever permanent it was affecting or just sits on the game state. Kind of like stadiums in Pokemon. That's probably the best way to explain enchantments. Very similar to stadiums in Pokemon. for the most part. There is some overlap, though, again, kind of drawn on Pokemon lingo here, where sometimes there are effects that give a small boost. So, like, equipments that make your fire Pokemon deal extra damage would be a good example of an enchantment effect. And then from there, that's kind of the breakdown. So most decks in Magic, if you're playing a constructed format, which is the most popular way to play, you're going to have 60 cards. You're going to have, in an average 60-card deck, you'll have between 18 to 24 resource cards or lands. And then the rest is going to be, 36 to 42 effects. And then from there, most decks usually have about, I think on the low end, you'll average about maybe 10. On the high end, you'll have as high as 30 creatures. It just depends on the strategy you're going for and the synergies you want to exploit. But yeah, it's a really fun game. It's like chess, but insanely more complicated. With it's literally
a lot
so
more moving pieces.
Yeah. Because the game is so randomized in its resource distribution, and it's such a game that rewards the ability to bluff, utilize hidden information, and then for your poker players out there, really read the table and like guide people down the path that you want them to be on.
Yeah.
It's literally so complicated and difficult to do that there's not really an AI that can even get close to even a decent Magic player. Like, not to say a computer can't beat you, it can, but like you start talking the top, say 20% of all players on the planet, they will literally just beat up on an AI every day of the week, no matter what you do. So
that makes sense.
Magic Arena Online became a thing, I was a kid who didn't have friends to play with, so the 7th edition starter came with this ROM disc that you could play AI opponents on, and there were three
terrible.
of them. They were terrible, and
they were
three
so
of
bad.
them. But man, if that wasn't just what I would do, because this is all I could get.
Oh yeah, I would goldfish my decks for like hours.
What else am I
someone
gonna
to
do?
play, but I didn't necessarily have someone to play with. So yeah.
So I did notice your Approachable Dad Bod energy shirt that you're rocking right there. What is Approachable Dad Bod energy? How would you define Approachable Dad Bod energy?
Do you want cool. Good question. So we're very blessed, right? Like I have a really great crew of players that I get to work with, play with, support. And we have a lot of folks that are big fans of the team, and they're like, oh man, how do I get a shirt? How do I join your team? And it's like, cool, I'm so glad you asked. And then I actually lay out the parameters, and a lot of folks go, wow, that's really in depth. So the big one is, and I cannot stress this enough, you have to absolutely love to teach other people. If you do not love teaching this game that we're passionate about, there's literally nothing to discuss at that point. Like that is the baseline. You've got to love to teach. Then from there, you've got to be, you've got to play with integrity. You've got to trade with integrity, because Magic is very much a collectible and tradable game. So if you're not literally enhancing your community through your actions, then it's just not going to fit. You're not going to fall into the whole category. It's really a measure of excellence in the face of adversity. Some of the baddest beats I've ever taken, I did with a smile and graciously told my opponent, they're like, yeah, man, that happens. Sometimes you don't draw what you need. The important thing is you learn from it. You keep moving forward. You keep asking the tough questions. What could I have done differently? Yeah. And then examining the data presented in. What do I need to plan for? The way that this came about, it's actually Tammy's fault entirely. Like she was the one who designed the logo and all that. And it's actually a tribute to my friend Pete, who passed away very suddenly last year. And Pete was a really, 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 really talented man on so many fronts. Really just a brilliant dude, very successful, professionally, personally, privately, just a good dude. And our good friend Tom was like hanging out with him at one of our get-togethers, and he's like, man, why does everyone always want to like go and like gravitate towards Pete? Like what's the deal there? And so kind of the running gag, because Pete was like a giant fucking nerd, like just painfully nerdy and made no secret of it. And yet he'd just be surrounded all the time by these just really awesome people, some of which were like half his age, and they're like, what the fuck is that guy doing? Why is everyone like, oh man, I gotta go hang out with this dude? And so Tom lovingly coined the term that Pete had, in fact, approachable dad bod energy.
There you
And
go.
that's why everyone gravitated toward him. And, you know, we were hanging out with my friend Tom, and he literally just wore a shirt that just had it in like real simple block letters. And I said, oh my fucking God, I need that. Because I'd already founded my business and it was Dad Bodied Gaming.
Right.
Then Tammy got a hold of it, you know, with Tom's blessing. I mean, it was really just it was a tribute to a friend who had passed away.
Right.
And in a lot of ways, what does it mean to have approachable dad bod energy? It means being your best self, helping others to do the same, acting with integrity, and, you know, constantly pushing for two big things. One, you know, enhancing and building and diversifying the community around you, and then two, bettering yourself in that process. So, sorry, I kind of launched.
No, that makes a lot of sense.
Player on Dad Bod.
Like,
Yeah.
I'm here. I'm like, keep going. Like,
That's
I'm
the
here
interview
for-
answer, you know. That's for it. I'm here for it. So switching back a little bit to Magic the Gathering. Magic the Gathering has been around for decades at this point.
Oh yeah,
just a
30-year anniversary. This year.
It's just a couple or a
30
few decades, but decades nonetheless. You know,
True.
what do you think has made Magic the Gathering persist for so long? Right? It didn't. There's tons of trading card games that have gone, you know, in and out of popularity. There's some that have literally had, you know, massive rises and massive falls, and then some that come back. But like Magic the Gathering has been pretty consistent. What has given it this longevity?
Right. I hope the glare doesn't wash all of
Can
this
see
out,
some of it,
but
yeah.
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 The art of Magic the Gathering is just, it's unfucking believable. Like,
Yeah.
it's just,
Second to none.
it's gorgeous.
It
Like,
is second to none.
yeah, like they are the number one employer of fantasy artists and probably just artists in the world, and have been for a long time. So the aesthetic is absolutely gorgeous, and to me that's still one of the biggest draws for me, is just the sheer beauty of it all. And then I'd say, you know, from there, you know, we already touched on it. It's so complex. There's just so much happening in a given game, much less turn, that makes it have just infinite replay value. You can play the exact same two decks, and we'll go ahead and even just make it easy, right? And they're both linear. There's not a whole lot happening, right?
Right.
You'll play 100 games, and in that 100 games, maybe 10 play the same way. But even if they do play the same way, they're going to feel radically different.
Yeah.
I could show you.
Is that variability in
moves.
each match?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
again, the complex decision trees, there's just so much that you can bluff, that you can do, that you can, and how you choose to interact and win. And, you know, the greatest plays in the history of Magic, more often than not, they're just, for lack of a better term, just fucking balls of steel gambits. Shit that has no business working. And man, you watch those players, because a lot of them too are professional poker players, or they're professionals at other hobbies like Pokemon, Hearthstone, or, you know, even now some esports, like there's some League of Legends players that are like absolute gods at Magic, because, you know, if you're used to playing League of Legends, well, oh, it's turn-based, and I just have to manage these 7 cards.
Mhm.
Yeah, that sounds easy, you know, like it's nothing. And, you know, what makes them so good is their ability to never lose focus, never communicate information they don't want their opponents to have. And then the truly, truly excellent ones, they'll make you think it's X when in fact it was always Z all along.
Any game that has, you know, twists and turns like that can still last for as many years as it has, you know, that speaks to its
And
longevity.
And the R&D team for Wizards, they catch a lot of shit, but you're literally looking at some of the finest minds in game development, period. Like, at any given moment, their roster of talent is just absurd. And now, lately, it's been a lot of former professional players, which is even better. But it's also because they're under Wizards of the Coast, which Wizards of the Coast owns Dungeons and Dragons. So, like,
Yep.
you've got all
Lots of
these
crossover artists in that department too. They're like, I
and
saw-
creators,
Mhm.
and creators too. And that's what makes it so good, is you basically, they're like God, I fucking hate the Patriots, but they're like the goddamn Patriots in terms of like game development. They literally just have all the best players, all the best resources, all the best coaches. Like
it's really not an unfair comparison. Like they are Wizards they are the Patriots of the collectible collectible game
in general,
industry.
Yeah.
What ultimately took you from going from this being like a supplemental income, a hobby you enjoy, like a big driving just major activity for you, into turning this into Dad Bodied Gaming? Like what was the driving force to be like, this is going to be the thing now?
Yeah, absolutely. My wife, full stop. Tammy is my partner. Tammy is just, people who've known me a long time. Their first response when they meet Tammy is, "How the fuck did you end up with someone who's so nice? Like, she's so genuinely positive. How did this happen?" And I'm like, "Well, that's fucking rude." But she is, and on my better days and better moments, I am too. And my picker is broken, is the best way I can say it. I have not always found the most compatible matches, and Tammy loved playing the game. I got back into playing. So, right, like in 2011, I moved to Texas after having played for just shy of a year in Indianapolis, Indiana. And during that time period in Indianapolis, 2010, the best contemporary set of Magic the Gathering ever launches. It's Innistrad 1.0, the very first. What I would literally do is I would drop in and oh man, Sab, we're gonna be friends if you understand this reference. I'm gonna look up the card. I want to get it right. Bear with me a moment. But I would basically just play these kind of dinky looking creatures, and people would be like, "Oh, I don't care." Like, yeah, go ahead.
Is it Clamilton?
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I love Alexander Clamilton. I love that you changed your profile picture of that too. That makes me so happy.
So I saw that and I'm like, oh, he found it.
And there's a great supplemental set that I'm going to recommend to everyone at the end. But so yeah, I was playing during Mirrodin Besiege, New Phyrexia Standard. I do these seemingly non-starter, like who gives a shit moves, but then I drop this card in and I would just start swinging. I'd be like, here you go, take two. Be like, life? Yeah, just take two. And they take two.
It adds up so fast too.
And then they take two. And then they realize they're about to have taken 6 damage off this fucking thing over the course of 2-3 turns. And then I'd go, yeah, okay, take two. Be like, fuck. And if they block it, cool, I get a resource, and then I actually play something good. Kind of what got me back into it was playing that and realizing that the game was so much bigger and more flexible than it ever had been. And I basically went undefeated for 32 weeks in Indianapolis. Like, I was a fucking terror. Like, I would show up and...
Alrighty.
And, when we moved to Texas, it turns out I actually had a real talent for trading cards and speculating correctly. So I could look at a set release and tell you exactly, this is what's going to matter when this, and this happens. Mm-hmm. And so when we moved here, we were pretty broke. I sold like part of my trade collection for about $3,000. And over the course of that summer, I made another $8,000. Got at one point, I think I had 48 separate copies of Snapcaster Mage, which was from Innistrad. And that was like, when it came out, it was a $20 card, and I bought every single copy I could get my grubby little hands on. It capped out at one point at $100. I still see
cards from the Innistrad block that are commanding like $35, $40 individual prices, and I see them at like places like Outlaw Moon and stuff like that, and I just look at it, I'm like,
no.
They still had packs, like booster packs from Innistrad that are commanding $30, $40 now, and I'm like, that's not even an individual card, that's just the booster.
But anyway, so I do that, I'm playing, I'm having a great time. They announced that they're returning to Ravnica, and basically myself and some other aspiring players who were trying to go pro, and some of them even did, and I just basically was like, guys, let's be real. I have the attention span of a goldfish. I'm never going to make the pro league. But if you guys allow me to, I can basically take our pooled investment of the cards we already have, and if we each kick in a couple $100, we'll go buy a case of Return to Ravnica, and I will basically be able to trade and or properly speculate to the point where y'all will never have to open your wallets to play Magic the Gathering at the highest levels ever again. And I did that for about 6 months, and I took a, maybe not even $2,000 investment and flipped it to about $19,000 at its height.
What I'm hearing is I need to take a lot of my decks over to you and see whether and reevaluate my investment portfolio.
So I do all that. Have a really, really, really shitty, messy divorce that, dear God, still dealing with the fallout from that. I took about an 8-year break, started playing Game of Thrones, TCG, or LCG. Became one of the best players on the planet at that. And then my daughter actually got into Pokemon of all things, like playing the card game. And it's like a fucking alarm went off. I was like, oh man, I fucking love opening packs. I can't wait to shuffle cards.
It's such a good dopamine hit. It's so good. It's so good.
I literally remember I was in a Target in Austin at like maybe 9:30 at night, having got off work at Apple, and I bought a pack of, what was that? It was something Thunder. I buy the pack. I'm like, fuck it. Open it in the car, and there's the fucking Charizard. And it's like a $400 Charizard. And I was just like, oh, yes!
Well, that actually brings an interesting question for me. Like, is
Sure.
there any difference that you would say, what's the biggest difference between Magic the Gathering and, like, say, Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, being some of the two, I guess, biggest TCG games out there? What makes Magic the Gathering differ from those two?
How do I put this politely to all the Pokemon viewers? Magic's a really good game. That's as nice as I can be about it.
That somehow was more ruder than anything else you could have said.
Go ahead. I want to take a straw poll attached to this interview.
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead and tell me the last time you evolved a Pokemon in TCG.
Oh,
I
don't know. Yeah.
I think I managed to do it the first
Single stage,
time
just
I
where
played
it's
the
at.
actual card game against Dotson.
And
that was my win.
Here's my follow-up. Are you ready? For maximum rudeness, all offense intended, Dotson. When's the last time you built a deck where you intended to evolve a fucking Pokemon?
Your guess is as good as mine. I mean, as far as Pokemon goes, I'm much more of a collector than I am an actual player. I feel like one of the biggest differences in the Pokemon community and the Magic the Gathering community is that Magic has simply more application in actually using the cards, right? There's a lot of people that are involved in Pokemon cards that have never actually even played a game of Pokemon TCG.
Credit where it's due. Pokemon is arguably right up there next to Coca-Cola and Apple in terms of brand management. They have the best brand management in the entire collectible world.
The largest money-making franchise in the world.
And
Yes.
I would say they dwarf the NFL, and I know I'm statistically right. Mathematically, Pokemon is the best managed IP on the fucking planet, shy of maybe nothing.
Yeah.
I guess you'd have to combine all of Disney together to rival Pokemon, and you'd have to consider the entirety of Disney's holdings.
Yeah.
Pokemon still gets a run
and for a lot of people in America, that seems like a ridiculous comparison. But if you go over to Japan and you see how much it is
Anywhere else in the
utilized
world.
over there, like the comparison makes a lot more sense.
Pokemon is literally built into Japan's infrastructure.
Yeah.
Like,
Yes.
Pokemon are on their road signs. They are on their manhole covers. Like, it is as much a cultural institution as like football mascots are here. Actually, no, that's not even a fair comparison. They're way higher than that.
Yeah, because Pokemon mascots are funner.
Well, and every town has a mascot that
Yeah.
owes its existence to Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I suspect that's, oh man, we could go real deep on the effect of Shintoism and, just the Japanese culture and strength of imagination importance therein. But I'm not Japanese. I don't speak Japanese. And I am not qualified to have that conversation, but I'll say this. I fucking love it.
Yeah.
And I love to this day playing Pokemon with my daughter. I fucking adore it. And since you did ask, hey, what's the difference game-wise, right? So
Right.
Pokemon is a better collectible, a better IP, and if you're a very, very, very high-level Magic player with a lot of experience like myself, it is like playing the wildest, fastest game of vintage Magic you've ever played in your
So
life.
fast by comparison.
I
oh my
deck
God.
myself when I play my daughter. because I get so excited. I'm like, oh, I can just play this card, draw 7 new cards. I'll do that. Like, half the time I play her, I lose because I run out of cards, because it's such... Pokemon, when played at a high level, and then their online presence, their online application, is actually a way better game than most games of Magic the Gathering. The challenge is, though, getting to that high level will almost never happen for the average Pokemon player. It's just, in order to do that, you have to be willing to drop about $1,000 per set and track it down, and then find people to play against at a super high level, which Pokemon just cannot even rival Magic in terms of its high-level organized play.
Yeah, I think Pokemon requires a lot more legwork into building the type of high-level competitive deck you would need to like really excel versus Magic. Like, granted,
Magic
like,
you can play right out of the box.
It's still like, yes, like you're paying for what you get, but at the same time, like, it's way more accessible to find the specific things you need.
Yep.
Right.
You get at least one rare every time, and while there are some stinkers, for the most part, they're all useful to a point. Pokemon, not so much.
Yeah.
No one cares about Dunsparce, and they never ever will.
No.
Hey, that's sadly true, because it's a super cute Pokemon.
It's very true. But hey, Gen 9, let's give it an evolution. Let's see what happens.
So, anyway, I'm going to finish the thought. How did I get in? How did Magic become my actual job, right? So I opened that fucking Charizard. The year is approximately 2018. I'm working for Apple full-time as a manager for Apple Care.
Sorry.
Really cool job. Really, really stressful. And I was basically got into playing Pokemon because Ellie wanted to play Pokemon. Fun fact, I'm the only actual dad on Team Dad Bodied. Like, I'm the only one with kids. Go figure.
You don't need to be a dad to have a dad body.
That's true. Or to have approachable dad bod energy.
Exactly.
It's true. Or it's true. Yeah. But, so Ellie's enjoying it, and I'm loving it. I'm just fucking in love with it. I'm like, oh, this is great. And, I basically started to realize that, well, there's actually money to be made at this. And so I started selling cards. Kind of as a side hustle. I climbed the ranks of their online platform, and it was basically like top 1% all the time, because I would just sit there and just kill time on my iPad. And then I opened that Charizard, and I'm like, fuck, this is great. And so I go to my LGS, Alpha Strike Games in San Marcos, and I say, hey guys, I don't really sell Pokemon all that much, but I know this has a lot of value. Would you want to buy it? And they're like, well, we could give you this. And it was a reasonable offer, like, just cash offer. But if you want to store credit, we could do that instead. I said, well, all right, that's cool. Like, what can I buy to store credit? Well, anything you want. And they have a really nice selection of D&D books and board games. And they're like, oh yeah, and there's this new set called Throne of Eldraine. All right, yeah, sure. I'll take a box of that. And they're like, cool, here you go. Here's a box. And oh my god, the cards. I've
been seeing those come up like more as sets now as they come out, like in recent years, like the past 2-3 years. Like now, to a point now, something in the Facebook algorithm found me, and I see ads for like these like companies that sell like the one shot like full alt art cards, taking directly from Pokemon. I don't know who did that first, but of just like reprints of cards that I remember picking up in like Urza Saga, if not earlier, like Prophecy, Mirage, Mercadian Mask, and looking at these cards, and I'm like, how old am I now? What is happening?
So, yeah. No, I agree. I'm such a sucker for it. I can't even help it. Like, so I've got my modern deck right here, which, man, the glare is killing it, but, like, you can build this deck for less than $1,500. But because I'm such a sucker for the art, it's like $3,500 or some crazy shit. Like, I forget the number, but it's absurd. I bring it home. Me and Tammy, she's super excited. We watched the trailer for it. The trailer for Throne of Eldraine, by the way, is fucking hysterical. It's just so good. And we watched the trailer, and then we start opening the packs. And the cards, oh my god, the cards are just... To say Throne of Eldraine is the most beautiful set they've ever made is just... I cannot convey to you how beautiful it is. Like, it is so gorgeous. Fun fact, this is my go-to gift whenever I go to any kind of major tournament or event for Magic. I bring home a box of Throne of Eldraine. So we opened it, and we're like, Tammy, God bless her, she is just dying laughing at some of the flavor text. Like Bartered Cow. That's the card that made me go, okay, I'm gonna marry this woman. And
Had you there? Had you hooked that Bartered Cow?
It literally, the flavor text is, no one at the market paid attention to the increasingly more frantic mooing, and I forget the character's name, but of the girl who got turned into a cow.
Did you go up to Tammy and be like, if you were mooing in the market, I'd pay you attention?
I mean, I am kind. Yeah, let's be real. That probably happened, but she's just dying, and it for the first time in a long time, because I'd been so obsessed with competitive and financial aspect of the game previously, I realized that, oh my God, this is what everyone's talking about. Like, that's how I felt when I opened like a hidden trapdoor spider in Ice Age block when I was like, God, I would have been like 12 at that point, or 13 or some shit. Like, I was a kid.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And fucking
they weren't creatures, they were summons at that point.
yeah, oh, they were so
Summons.
bad. They were such a bad card.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, so we open the box, and I'm just cheesing out, dying, like, oh my God, my partner is making this, like, this is the happiest I think I've ever felt in my life. Like, it was still a top 10 experience of happiness. Like, maybe not surpassing the birth of my daughter, but like in the running, like on the same list. And if you don't know, like, I love my kids. Like, I go back to the game store the next day, and I'm like, guys, I opened this foil borderless mythic rare, the Royal Scions. It's like this 3-drop planeswalker that's ridiculously good that is yet to find true success. And I'm like, do you guys want to buy this? She's like, well, no, it's not even that good. And I literally went, well, we fast forward a few years. They banned, I think, 11 cards from that one set. The last time they had to do that was during your favorite block, Sev, and that was there was a Saga block. Because they had to ban Solarian Academy and Gaia's Cradle and Time Spot. And I was like, and that's what it says, like, this is, I haven't seen a power level this high since Time Spot, since that block. Like,
Yeah.
So I'm talking to the guys who run the game store, one of which is my friend Jay, who I knew back from living in Austin. And I'm just like, and Jay's just like, huh, you really think it's that good? I'm like, oh yeah, no, this set is absurd. Legitimately the most powerful set they've ever made, like, bar none. Turns out I was right. Still am. And I start getting back into playing and collecting, and this, for the first time in my entire life, I have big kid money.
There you go.
And so I build this blue-green Simic Value Town absolute, I believe the nickname it got at the shop was Trade Binder, because it's like a standard deck that costs $1,000. And I head up to Pat's Games in Austin, which is like one of the best game stores in the country for competitive play.
100%. Huge fan. Been shopping there
I'm
ever
still a
since
big
I got
fan.
back in.
And so I show up, and I don't know fucking anyone there. Staff is like, wait a minute, where do I know you from? Like, I'm like, oh yeah, da-da-da. And they're like, holy shit, dude, it's good to see you. And they were gonna do, so I showed up to play Standard, and so they're like, well, we're gonna do this other thing instead. And so they decide to fire off. They just announced like a day or two before Pioneer, which Pioneer is Return to Ravnica Onward. And so they're literally letting everyone just proxy cards, which is unheard of at Pat. She doesn't do that. But everyone's so excited, and so they all proxy their decks, and I'm like, I just have this standard deck, can I play? They're like, oh yeah, go ahead, man. And, I later found out that the people I played against that night, several of them have won Grand Prix, played on the Pro Tour. Like, I'm just some fucking idiot who showed up.
I'm a schmuck who just likes to play the game.
And that's literally what I said.
Right.
I beat their asses so badly. And I was hooked.
Yeah.
I didn't drop a single game, single round. And so
love Nissa.
I started playing, and I had a great time, and I would really make the drive from Kyle on Tuesdays, driving like a fucking maniac, getting off
all the way
work,
up to
right at
Pat's.
5:30, all the way up to Pat's, which was literally 35 miles each way. in the middle of Austin traffic, and I would, more often than not, I'd get there late and I'd take a round one loss, and I would still end up winning every other round. You know, very quickly, I
spiraled
no longer
into
had to
madness.
yeah, I didn't have to drive for Uber anymore. Like, I was making enough money just doing that, where I could literally just work my job at Apple. Didn't even need to do overtime anymore because I was making so much money just trading and playing. And then GP Austin happens in, God, that was 2020, like January of 2020, right before the world ends. None of us know this. It's also the pre-release of Theros Beyond Death. And I basically dropped, like, unfortunately my wife will never hear this, right? Because she's not going to come back and watch the interview, but I dropped a couple $1,000s. I mean, I dropped a lot of fucking money.
He will never know. This is not the internet.
Wow.
This will not
No one will tell her either, right?
Right.
I dropped probably, and at that moment, that was a lot of money for me to drop like $1,500. And I bought this one card called Uro, Titan of Nature's Wrath, at $20 a piece.
Wow.
That card, at its height, got to about $100 a pop, if you could even find it.
Yeah,
I bought out
damn.
every single copy that Star City Games had. By the end of that weekend, I had taken the $100 that Jay gave me, paid him back $150 the following day, and I made $7,000 literally going from booth to booth, buying and selling from vendors to vendors to vendors to vendors to vendors, and occasionally trading with players, and then going back over to Pats, selling to Pats. I mean, it got so bad that by the end of that weekend, and I'm gonna go, I have this card on hand, and it's one of my favorite arts of all time. I'm gonna show it to you. I literally single-handedly changed the entire market nationally on the value of this fucking card. And I'm gonna show it to you real quick. Bear with me a moment.
Man.
And so it's from Throne of Eldraine. It's a mythic rare, and it has the adventure mechanic. And I'm gonna try and not hit the glare, but it's the showcase frame.
I lean closer to my screen as if that's gonna help. No.
And when I got there on Friday, I was buying these things at $12 pop, if that even.
Yeah.
By the time I left on Sunday, the next, because I kept buying and selling them, then trading and buying and selling them and trading them, buying and selling and trading them. And by the time I left, it was going for $70 a piece. And I went on TCG Player that following week, and it had literally climbed almost 300%.
Wow. 300%'s a lot.
And every vendor there literally knew who I was.
And so I'm guessing you took the success from these events like this and then were able to just take it off into a business, right?
Well, the world fucking ended.
That helps, yeah. That I guess so in this circumstance it helps.
And then I was working for Apple, doing my best. And it was miserable, but I was trying. And I had reached my breaking point. I was like, I'm not going to do this anymore. And so in a fit of anger and frustration, I'm like, fuck it, I'll open a TCG store.
Right.
TCG store blows the fuck up.
There you go.
By August, I'm in their TCG Direct program, which is really hard to do. God, I mean, I think we cleared $130,000 in sales in 8 months.
Wow.
On a initial investment of $1,500. We then attracted an investor that was a friend of ours. He dropped in $15,000 just based on the numbers. He was like, wait, you took less than $2,000 and made,
Literally 100.
Here's
literally
the money.
100-fold. Literally 100-fold.
Yeah.
Yeah. And basically I was able to quit my job at Apple because I had so correctly understood and predicted the market and play trends, and I've never really looked back since. And it's not always been easy, but I've never had to look back since. And it, much to my investor's chagrin, I was like, cool, let's start a pro team. And he's like, what the fuck is the point of that? And I was like, no, it'll all work out. You'll see.
Yeah.
We'll write it up
to make more money. And also, like, to keep this game going. Like, it's the entire game.
Right.
And so now, Alpha Strike Games in San Marcos is, I would argue, is the single most competitive metagame in Central Texas and South Texas. Like, you got to drive your ass to Dallas or Houston to find better competition any given night of the week. Somewhere along the way, the Adderall kicked in, all the therapy and the love and support of my wife kicked in, and I'm now like one of the best players on the fucking planet. Like, that's
there you go.
Just a fact.
That's what happens when you stick to it from 1993 before you were even born, right? You know.
I know. I was born for this.
Right. Or predestinedly born for it, since you didn't that
God needed one more sweaty nerd.
Right. Yes, that's clearly what the world needs more of right now.
I played my first D&D campaign in 1982.
Nice.
We're not going to ask you to look back, as you said before, but looking forward, I've heard a lot of big things. You talked a little bit about an investor here. I've heard some rumors about everything from Magic the Gathering stores to paintball. Like, what is the future of Dad Bodied Gaming look like, and what can you tell us?
Oh man. Oh god, I got it. All right.
Don't violate any non-disclosures. But
No. Our angel investor, a guy named Steve Eubank, works with my business partner Gerald. And Steve is like former Marine Special Forces, like really solid dude.
Yeah.
And now he works with Evo Cinemas out in Virginia, which my business partner Gerald works with as well. He's basically their project manager and architect of a lot of their stores. Steve has decided to go ahead and invest in Dad Bodied Gaming about, like $10 million, give or take. And we are going to be buying property right here in Central Texas in Buda. And then, we got 43 fucking acres. So we're going to build some paintball courses behind it because that shit's fun.
That's crazy.
And confirm.
And it's been a little bit delayed. No one's fault, just some family issues have come up with our investor, and he's a much stronger man than I am. Like, I don't know how he finds the time to deal with any of the paperwork.
Right.
But God bless, really good dude. My business partner Gerald is a really solid dude. Met him playing Magic. Runs our D&D campaign. Just
lots of
fucking
overlap
rad
there.
dude. And with a little bit of luck, we'll be open by Halloween or shortly after.
Oh wow, that's quick.
As in, like, 6
this Halloween or next Halloween?
No, this Halloween. Like, Gerald builds like I know it's impressive that we got 43 acres, 6,000. Motherfucker builds like 50,000 square foot buildings for a living.
Wow.
So he's basically going to be helping me to get all that going. So we're also now, because of Gerald, we're also Twitch affiliates.
Let's go.
Congrats.
Right?
Yeah.
Let's go.
We stream live Paper Magic, about twice a week.
Mm-hmm.
We do a little bit of MTGO online content too. It's just it's hard to keep from crying when I stop and think about how lucky's not even the word.
Sometimes
like
things
luck,
just fall into place,
It sounds like while luck definitely had its fair share in this grand equation, like a hefty amount of just raw talent and skill.
Mm-hmm.
Gas up.
Hard work. Hard work. When I stop and think about it, I legitimately don't. Like, I would literally sit at this very desk in our bedroom, all our nerd shit around me, and
looks around at his nerd shit.
Right? Yeah, and all of that's Tammy's, by the way. None of that is me.
Of
all
course
that's Tammy, other than the magic cards. And I would sit at my desk for 5 to 6 hours at a time, and I would not even stop to drink water. And I'd only be halfway through the orders.
Oof.
And I did that for months and months and months.
Hydration's important.
And
very important.
Hydrate or die straight. Hold on.
Well,
Drink
I
up.
obviously.
Oh, that was a close one. Oh, thank God.
Well, I
I thought
obviously.
this was gonna get me.
There you go. There you go. All right. Well,
So pale, Jesus, it's terrible.
before we finally wrap up here, we do have a couple of rapid fire questions. So if you're ready,
Yeah, boss.
we're gonna hit you with these real quick. All right. I'm gonna start us off. Marvel or DC?
Marvel.
Sav?
Unless it's Vertigo. If it's Vertigo, always pick Vertigo.
Okay.
Good distinction. Star Wars or Star Trek?
It's Star Trek. It's like, how is it even... George Lucas is a pompous ass, and the latest trilogy was better, but it wasn't planned. It's always Star Trek. If you can Picard, you should Picard. Fight me in the comments below.
Spicy takes here. Board game night.
Fight me, man.
Board game night or LAN party?
Oh God,
I knew this one was gonna hit you.
For a LAN party.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Okay.
I knew my audience when I asked this question.
God, you know what? LAN party, but only if it's too hot, it's in a shitty basement of a school or your mom's house, and you have to literally hardwire everything, and it fails at least once an hour for no discernible reason. And then it's LAN party all the way.
There you go. There you go.
Mountain Dew and cheese puffs. Let's go.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. If I can see the keys on my keyboard, I haven't landed correctly.
Right. Right.
Movie theater or binge watch couch at home?
Drive-in.
Okay.
Best of all worlds, drive-in.
Okay.
100% drive-in.
Okay.
Okay.
There is a third option. You found it.
I'm just saying.
Liquor or beer?
Motherfucker, I'm a certified sommelier. I will not pick. You can't make me. It's too hard to be this pretentious. So, I'll tell you what. I'll say, if it's wine, it's Malbec. I love Malbec. The cheaper, the better. If it's beer, I'm such a basic bitch. If it's beer, it's gonna be a Hefeweizen, ideally Paulaner. Although Live Oak here in Texas is incredible. Or a Bruzzi. God, I love a Bruzzi. It's just this cheap, shitty, sparkling Italian until you try it and you're like, oh my God, this is delicious. Like, this is incredible.
That's how I like all my Italians. Cheap, shitty, and sparkling.
There you go.
Spirits, beer, wine, all of it is best shared with people who love it and love you. So, do what you like.
There you go. There you go. What a note to cap the night on. Well,
here's to that.
Thank you so much, Stan, for joining us. I've already finished my beer, so I need to get another one. Thank you so much, Stan, for joining us. We're gonna drop your link tree in the comments and everywhere where we can. But where can everybody find you? Just if they're listening to you around, where's a good place to get in touch with you?
So if you go to just dadbodied.com, so DADBODIED.com, that's probably the fastest, easiest way. The name of the store we're going to be opening, working title, we're probably going to go with it, is going to be The Deserving Mark, here in Buda, Texas. So that's just south of Boston.
Very cool.
The catchphrase, this is so The Deserving Mark is my wife.
Mm-hmm.
Catchphrase my business partner Jill came up with was based on our D&D game in which our friend Gina literally robbed her brother.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you weren't paying attention. You weren't going to miss your gold anyway. So our actual fucking motto is you aren't going to miss your gold anyway.
That's cute. Very cute. Very cute.
But yeah, that'll be opening there again. Fingers crossed. Either shortly after or right before Halloween this year. And then you can catch us on Twitch. We stream primarily on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at Approachable Dad Bods. I know it's a mouthful, but you know. So if you want to hear bad jokes, channel,
I got it.
Yeah, you want to hear bad jokes and watch obnoxiously good paper modern play. Like obnoxiously good. Like
all the time.
Yeah, if you ever want to check it out and you want the actual feel of an LGS in the background, like feel free to turn it on. We're always happy to have more viewers. So
absolutely. Well.
TCGplayer.com. Dad Bodied. That is the actual name of the store. So it's Dad and then space Bodied. So right now we don't have anything listed because we're getting ready to open the store, but we will. And if you go check there, I'm going to humble brag for a minute. It's not a coincidence. I think we're coming up on 6,000 5-star reviews with literally not a single piece of negative feedback. So
there you go.
There you go.
There you go. All right. Well, thank you so much, Stan, for joining us today. It was really interesting getting to know everything about Dad Bodied Gaming and everything, all this great Magic the Gathering conversation. Yeah, thanks for joining us, man. It was great having you.
Love it. Thank you so much. It was really absolute pleasure, Ryan. Thank you so much.
This could have been a 5-hour interview, but our viewership will not.
Hey, I am that long-winded.